Good morning, Rabbi Sai. A guten Chodesh, Rabbi Sai. Mishe. Mishe nichnas ador, ay, Mishe nichnas. Oy, Mishe nichnas avador marbim besimcho. Shkoyach Rabbi Isai, Guten Chodesh. Came all the way from Israel to do a siyum Moed Katan with my father, Jack Stepner, father and son. There's nothing like, huh? Really? Jonathan's classmate right here doing the daf on 2 devices. I like this email. I'll tell you why. Because the younger light from Kailo, they don't usually send in emails, and when they do, it's a big treat. Want to start off? I'm a younger man in BMG, learning 3 zdarim a day. He did brachas and Shabbos during COVID, but went back to his regular routine. But he always wanted to do the daf. He says, I am not the most morning type of guy. My brain doesn't work till at least after Shachris. So I figured I'd have to listen to the shir. I tried a couple of shiurim. It wasn't fit until I came across of yours. It's much easier to learn before Shachris, especially with all the charts that make everything so clear. Listen to this, Rabbi Isai. Doing the daf and getting it klar gives me more of a sipuk in the rest of my zdarim during the day. Hashtag yishmak to do the daf. Thank you for all your time and preparation. The daf makes a difference in everyone, even in the regular Yingaman and BMG. Just have one question. Are you still doing the 8-minute daf? Oof. Not today, but tomorrow, yeah? He uploaded on his old-fashioned iPod, tagged up more than tag itself. You guys know what tag is, right? They do those filters. I think we're doing a thing with them. We're gonna have a phone soon coming out, a Torah phone. It was his main chazara. He did it a number of times a day during the long drives in the Lakewood traffic. Wow. Okay, we're gonna have to do it. He tried Zichru, but it's this, that. Okay. Eli Roberts, Lakewood. P.S. In regards to my uncle Shapsi Cohen. The Talmud Chacham sits right over here. He even says where he sits. Comes during the. I don't think he comes during the week, but he's on the left front of the Beis Medrash every Motzei Shabbos. Correct. Here we have one from, let me show you this picture real quickly. This, I forgot who it is, I didn't write who it is, but this woman got her husband a beautiful gift. And this is the Yosef Chaim Fletcher. Where did he get it from? It says over here, designer woodcraft. Where is that? England? Manchester. You can get it in Manchester. Shh, I'm daffing. You have to get a different color because this one is already taken, but nah. Nice gift. Was noch? This one is from Betzalel Mordechai Salomon. He writes in the Ar Merkaz. It's a long one, but somebody came over to him out of the blue, somebody he never met, and said that he loves his Divrei Torah that he writes for the Ar Merkaz. And he says, there's so many people that are smarter than me, better than me, that write, and this random person came and gave me chizuk. It's a beautiful thing. This might not be the greatest chesed ever, but if we don't take small steps, we don't get anywhere, because sometimes all people need is something small like a thank you or good morning to show that we are cared for. So thank you for this to this man who gave me the motivation to write for Ar Merkaz. I'd also like to give a shout out to Hershey Friedman. He tried to get 4 friends to come to the daf. Hershey did, in one day, he caught up 3 daf. I got a message from Akiva Solkowitz. He's in Orlando and he fell behind. He stayed up to 2 a.m, catch up on 4 daf. Beautiful. And one last one. Here's another Solomon. I wonder if they're related. This is from Simcha Solomon. He says that his 8-year-old, his name is Abba Shol, and he said, look, on Daf Yotes, your name is mentioned 10 times. He says, look, the 8-year-old says, but in Megillah, Daf Yud Gimel also says Abba Shol twice. He asked him, what Amud Aleph, Amud Beis? He says, it's on Amud Beis, Kayan Hara. My 5-year-old son, he goes to his friend, and the parents tell him that his son kept on talking about Gemara, Masechtas Megillah, the Daf, and his 3-year-old says, it's Geshmak to learn the Daf. The whole mishpach is involved. Yeah, okay, I like that. Geshmak. I got the message. This month's Koilel sponsor, Mr. Anonymous, Lishos Chayev Bas Yosef. Beautiful. The Koilel breakfast is sponsored by, he wants his name out for now, the members of the Koilel and Reb Eli. He's sponsoring the Koilel breakfast for Rosh Chodesh. Masechtas Moed Katan is dedicated by the Kessler and Davis families, Refuah shleima for Miriam Esther bas Devora, Michael and Jayme Benmeleh, in memory of Devora Faige bat Shmuel, Menachem Mendel, Elchanan, neshamas and Aliyah, and Moshiach should come bimhera. The MDY Family sponsoring Lili Nishmas Reb Shalom Baruch Yudo Zechron Levracha Ben Rav Yosef Yechiel Michal Shlita Reb Yidi Leibowitz by Dovid Plonka Hakaras Hatov to Hashem and to Reb Eli and the MDY team in honor of Rosh Chodesh Adar. That individual that was doing the ads and all the money goes to the mishpacha. I want to show you the new ad. It's very difficult. You have to see it close. But basically, this is a picture of the Magid designed by 1,000 people that are participants, real pictures of actual Loimdei Hadaf, members. So all that design, you want to see it? Take a look. We are starting Chagiga next week. It is the first. He's looking for his own face. It's the guy without the hair, Avi. The Masechtas Chagiga is starting next week on Friday, I think it is. So it's time to start bringing your friends. This is the last opportunity to have a small Masechta. Tell your friends. Only, I don't remember, 28 daf, something like that. Very small Masechta, very Geshmak, especially in the beginning. Then we end up a little with Tum and Tahar at the end, but we won't tell anybody. And then it's Yivamas. So Yivamas is going to be probably one of the last times that we do that Gemara push, and it's, I don't know, we have to see. Maybe we'll do the second volume, third volume. It's not going to have the same effect. We're not going to give out that many Gemaras in the middle of Yivamas, I don't think. So think about dedication opportunities. If you want to be in the front of Yivamas, now is the time. There's only a few more days until Yivamas goes to print. Bring your friends. Join MDY.com. Yeah? I keep on forgetting. Join DafYomi.com. GrowTheShir.com. If you're already in the shir and you bring a friend, you want a free Gemara. V'chulu. Okay. Rabbi Eli, today is Daf Chaf, and we are holding in middle of a sugya, 2, 4, 6, 8 lines down from the bottom, Eisvei. So we had a shaila yesterday. If somebody dies on Yantif, when does the shleishim count? Do we count from the day he dies, 30 days from that day? Or do we count from after Yantif is over? Because anyways, there's no Shiva right now during Yantif, and you have to do Shiva again. You have to start Shiva from the start. You want to give that around. Whoever doesn't want to learn now could look at this picture here. Leiby, you're in Koilel, you don't need to learn now. The Shiva obviously starts after Yantif. So the Shloishim start after Yantif. You can count some of the days of Yantif towards the Shiva. So, towards the Shloishim. Thank you. We had Rabbi that says, Eine Yoila. No, it doesn't count. You have to start 30 full days after Yantiv is over. Eisvei. So you have a kash on Rabbi. It says Mefurish, Regel Oila Loi Lemi and Shloishim. The Yantiv does count towards 30 days. You can't say like the Gemara finished off yesterday, perhaps it's talking about the case, the Reisha, that it started, the person died before Yantiv. No, over here it says Mefurish, Regel Oila Lemi and Keitzad. Kevare Betchilas HaRegel. He was buried during Yantiv. You can't say it was 2 days before. Minus Shiva, Achar Regel, he starts his Shiva after Yantiv. Like we had yesterday. Okay, so at the end of the day, the person died 10, 15 days ago. So you're permitted to do Melacha for him, other people, then his slaves, his servants, they could work for him privately. People are not being Menachem Avalim. Why? Because the person died on the first day of Yantif. There was 7 days of Yantif where people were Menachem him in Shul. They came over to the house to say Hamakim Menachem. In those days at least. There's no point of people coming to be Menachem Mendel again. You're not matriach them to do 14 days of Nichum Avelim. One of the guys in Koil told me that they were thinking about whether or not to tell his grandmother that her sister was nifter. She's old. Maybe we're talking about Shmuel Choike in a second. We're going to get there. Maybe delay it and say later after 30 days, and then she only has to sit shiva for a few minutes and Shalom Yisrael. And then they said, she's an elderly lady. She lives in Switzerland. Tell the Ilam. She barely had anything to do with her sister in America. It's not like the biggest tsar in the world. But now everybody's going to come visit her. 7 days of visitation. So they decided to tell her. And they said it was a good idea. Well, yeah. And here it says, V'regel oilaloi. The words that Rabbah said is regel einoi oilaloi. The yontif doesn't count towards the 30, and over here it says V'regel oilaloi, it counts towards the 30. To Yufta, and in fact, it's a beautiful question on Rabbah. End of the story. Yasser Ravin Omer Rabbi Yochanan. Another halacha. Ravin came and said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Afilu kivaroi beregel. V'chein, sorry, not another halacha. Afilu kivaroi beregel. That even if you bury the person during Yantiv, the Yantiv is part of the 30. V'chein R Eli, Rebbe Lazar, the Rebbe Das Berei. Rebbe Lazar told his son, I guess he had some sort of avelos, maybe his wife died. Afilu kivaroi beregel. Kivaroi. Zachar beregel. Okay. Torah. Kiem kvias hamita. If a person observed a little bit of the shiva, meaning he did something like flipping over a bed. Shloishi yamim koidem haregel. So shloishi yamim koidem haregel is like our Mishnah. We didn't get to the halacha that we are familiar with, that you need to be. All you need to do is a little bit of avelos before Yantiv. Shloisha yamim kaidem haregel. 3 full days, 3 days before Yantiv, he observed some sort of avelos, like kfias hamita, flipping over the bed. Now, stam is a nekuda. There's other things, relations, certain things that are asur, but it's not muchach that you're an avel. This shows that you're ba'avelos. You're taking action to show avelos. Letting your hair grow, for instance, doesn't show avelos. Everybody lets their hair grow. Taking your bed, flipping it over, that's avelos. Walking to shul barefoot, that would show avelos. But over here you have to notice the word kiyem. He actually took action. Kiyem. Because it could have said, if a person died 3 days before Yantif, and period. But what does kiyem mean? Kiyem means he did something to show that he's ba'avelos. It's not my diuk, it's the Ritva, the Rishonim talk about this diuk, that it seems like from the Gemara that you have to take action. You can't just say, the person died 3 days before Yantiv. Yantiv comes and cancels out Shiva. No, if you don't take action of Avelos, then Yantiv won't cancel the Shiva. The person would have to start Shiva after Yantiv. So Yantiv comes along and cancels the Avelos. Divrei Reb Eliezer. That's what the Shulchan Aruch paskins. Shulchan Aruch paskins that if a person doesn't take action, he doesn't remove his shoes or flip over his bed. Today we don't flip beds, so at least take off the shoes. What? Kriya, yeah, I guess. I don't know why it's never brought. Rashi always says those two things, but yeah, enochanami, yeah. L'chayra tearing kriya. Then you would, if you don't do that, you don't tear kriya, you don't flip the bed, you don't take off your shoes, you would have to start avelos afterwards. Says the Gemara, oh, this is the halacha we were waiting for. And this is what we do today. Sha'achas, 1 moment. If a person does avelos, doesn't have to be 3 days before Yantif. Erev Yantif. Happens all the time, unfortunately. Erev Yantif, somebody avail. Make sure you sit down on the floor, whatever you do, whatever shows the kriya, the whole thing. And that's it. Yantif comes, erases it. For the most part, there are some that say, there is a little bit of avelos in there, but for the most part, that's Rishonim, Dvar, Shmitzina, whatever it is, but comes Yantav, erases it. Omer Reb Elazar, Reb Shimon. Hein, Divri Beishamai, hein, Divri Beisil. What you're saying now, this discussion that we're talking about is actually an older machlokes of Beishamai Beisil. Shemishamai oimrim shloishi yomim, uBeisil oimrim afilu yom echad. Beishamai say, no, you have to observe 3 days. And the 3 days, what's 3 days? The ikr of the Avelos, you have to show serious Avelos of 3 days. B'silo Imrim, and we always pass like B'silo, Afilu Yom Echad. And he says in the side over here, the guy says, Afilu Shua Achas. Yeah, obvious. It's the same thing. Omer Rabban Omer Reb Chia Barabo, Omer Reb Yochanan, V'amri Lo, Omer Reb Yochanan Reb Chia Barabo Ravuna. Some say Reb Yochanan said this to Reb. Fine. Afilu Yom Echad, Afilu Shua Achas. That's the halacha. Even we're going to see in a second. That's the halacha. Rav Amar halacha Katana Didan, the Amar Shloisha. No, Rav argues, and it's like our Mishnah that you need 3 days. Says the Gemara, Avina Ikla l'Sura the Pras. Amar Rav Chaviv l'Ravina Hilchas Amai. What's the halacha? Amar Lei Afilu Yom Echad. And now you see that little gimel over there that shows that the Shulchan Aruch paskins like the next words. Va'afilu shah achas. Even one moment of Avelos, that's it, comes Yontif afterwards, cancels out the Shiva, and if you did 1 day of Shloishim, that we already said, Yontif comes and cancels out Shloishim. Yosef Reb Chia Barabba Reb Ami Reb Yitzchok Nafcha Akilo de Reb Yitzchok ben Elazar. They were all sitting on the porch by Reb Yitzchok ben Elazar. Novak Milsim Binayim. They came up together, they were Mechadish. How do you know the concept of Avelos that it's 7 days? The Chsiv. I'm going to flip your Yontif to Avelos. Hold on. Yeah. Ma chag Shiva af Avelos Shiva. Yeah, just like Yontif is 7 days. Pesach, Sukkot, with Hashmin Atzer, 7 days, 7 days. So we have a 7-day Yontif, so too, Avelos is 7 days. It's very interesting, if you ever notice that marriage and Avelos are parallel to each other. There's 7 days of Sheva Brachas. There's 30 days that a Chassan has to act a certain way. And there's Shana Rishayna. And then, of course, there's Yartzeit. There's a joke. Oh, well, how do you know what to compare it to? Do you do the 7 days of Sheva Brachas like Avelos, or what's the other? What else is 7 days? I don't know. Okay, Matzo Maitze. What?
It's too early to tell.
Whatever, okay. You stick to your machlokes and things. What are you getting to Kabbalah now? Okay, fine. Kriya? The Bria 7 days. Okay. So the Bria and the lack of the Bria, okay. Fine. One of the reasons that when you go to Beis Ha'ava, we don't say Vurachum or Vidui, is because of this idea of Avelos. We learn it from Chag, and there's no Vurachum on Chag, there's no Vidui on Chag. It's one of the reasons that they give. All right, Zog to Gemara. I was going to say a story here, but we don't have time for stories. It's Purim. It's Rosh Chodesh Adar. No time for this.
It's Rosh Chodesh
Av? Okay, fine, I get it. V'nahapachu. Ve'ema atzeres d'chad yoyma. Ask the Gemara, if you're going to compare Avelos to Yontif, there's another Yontif, there's 3 Yom Tovim. Who told you to pick Pesach? Maybe compare it to Shavuos, and Shavuos is only 1 day. So Mela Avelos should only be 1 day. Says the Gemara, Amud Beis l'geder Shlakish. Domer Shlakish b'shum Reb Yehuda Nesiya. Reb Shlakish said in the name of Reb Yehuda Nesiya, the grandson of Reb Yehuda Anasi. Menayin l'shmur rechoyka she'ein neges el yom echad. How do you know? There's another Elchanan. The Gemara says like this. There's 2 Yom Tovim. There's a Yontif of 7 days, there's a Yontif of 1 day, and we're going to learn from both. We're going to learn that Avelos typically is 7 days. But there's another type of Avelos. There's a Shmur Rechoyka Avelos. There's an Avelos that you only heard after, as the Gemara is going to explain, after 30 days. Somebody hears Rachman Aslan, his parent, one of his parents died, but it was 30 days ago, 31 days ago. So he goes and he sits Shiva. It's not Shiva, sits Yom Echad. 1 moment, and that's it. How do you know that halacha? That halacha you know from Yantif. Because it says that an Eivel should be like a Chag, and there is a Chag that's one day. But there's another type of Avelos. A regular Avelos, Shmuel Kroiva, a regular that you know, you heard right away. So that you do 7 days like Sukkot and Pesach. However, okay, so that we learn. You see, you learn from this pasuk, and in the pasuk there's a chag that's one day. So we learn 2 halachas from this one pasuk. It's not really 2 halachas. We're learning from Yantav, whatever. Some Yom Tovim are like this, some Yom like that. So Menachem it goes both ways. If a person hears a normal Shmuel Kroiva means that his parents or somebody died within the 7 days, we're going to see. The person observes Shiva Ushloishim, regular Shiva and Shloishim. However, if he heard it at a distance, far away from when it actually happened, you only sit 1 day. Ezi Kroiva, Bezi Rechoika, and this you see the Shulchan Aruch passages like this. That what Kroiva b'soy Shloishim. Kroiva means within 30. I might have said within 7. Mistake. Within 30. Rechoika la'achar Shloishim. Obviously, because Rochik means after Shloishim, and anything other than Rochik is Karev. So it's b'toy Shloishim. Divrei Rebbe Akiva. And this is how we're going to pass it, like Rebbe Akiva. V'chacham moimrim. Chachamim, the majority. Rebbe Akiva is an individual. He wins.
Shmuel came after they were covered the mace.
You're talking about Kvura versus the death?
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't know. Usually it's Kvura, but I don't know. It's a detail. V'chachamim oirim achas shmur kroiva v'achas shmur rechoika noiheges shiva u'shloishim. Chacham argue and they say it doesn't matter. Imagine if a guy was in the war, let's say, like 10 years after World War II, somebody says, I witnessed your father dying there. Does he sit Shiva or does he sit 1 day? Well, what does he do? So according to Chacham, he has to sit Shiva and Shloishim. According to Rebbe Akiva, and that's how we paskin, only 1 day. And Miksayim Kukulai. Omer Rechana Rebbe Yochanan. Kamokim Shata Moitzi Yachid Mekel V'Rabbi Machmirim Halacha Kirabim. All over Shas. Kimat all over Shas. There are exceptions to the rule, says Taisvis. But the normal halacha is we go like the rabbim, not like the yachid. Chutz mizu. Shav pishu Rebbe Akiva mekel. Chamachmirim halacha Rebbe Akiva. Damar Shmuel halacha kedivri hamekel be'evel. Over here we're going to go lekula as we had yesterday. Shmuel paskins that when it comes to avelus we always go like the mekel. Rav Chanina asilei Shmuel da'avua mebeichayzah. We're talking about a Shmuel rechoika. Rav Chanina. Again, until people came and went, no phones, everything was Shmuel Rechoika then. He heard that his father died 2 months ago. Also, like Amid Rav Chizda, Amalei Shmuel Rechoika in Neheges Eliyim Echad. So he went to Rav Chizda passing for him. Don't worry about it. 1 day only, not 7 days. Rav Nassan Marami also lay Shmuel the Imei Mibei Chizai. Reb Nassan heard about his mother. It was a Shmuel Rechoika. Also, like Amid Rava. Rav also paskin Shmur Rechoika 1 day. Eisvei b'med v'mamurim b'chamisha meisei mitzvah aval alav v'moishivu shloishim. So when we talk about the 7 kroivim, I have the pasuk here soon. Father, mother, wife, son, daughter, brother, sister. This Shmur Rechoika, he says, is only talking about these 5. But the father and mother, that's a whole different story. Shiva u'shloishim, doesn't matter when you hear about it, person has to sit Shiva and Shloishim. Omar lei, so it's a kash on Rava. Why Rava and who was it right before? This said that you only have to sit 1 day. Omar lei, yichidai v'lei svir lan kavasei. That's another shita, we don't know like that. We go like Rebbe Akiva. There's no difference between a father, mother, sister's wife. Only 1 day by a Shmuel Rechoika. The Sanya, Maisu Meis Oviv Sherebi Tzadok Beginzak Vaydu La'achar Shalishanim. He found out 3 years after his father's Ptira. Uba Shalas Elisha ben Avuya. So this is a big controversy. Is this the famous Elisha ben Avuya that went off the derech Acher? The famous Elisha ben Avuya. Perhaps it's not him. They're saying that it's not really him. Even if we're Goris, because somewhere it has the same exact Gemara and the name is flipped, But even if we're going to like this, it's a different generation. Uskeinim Shimon. V'amru nahoik shiva u'shloishim. He paskin. It would be interesting that we bring halacha from him, because, okay, fine, he was a Talmid Chacham then, obviously, he's a tzaddik and everything at that point, but that we mention him like that, I don't know. But whoever it is, paskin, nahoik shiva u'shloishim, on a father and a mother, you have to do shiva. So pay attention to this word. Who's the story about? The son of Achia. In a second, we're going to ask a question from Chia. Here's a story about Rebbe Achia, which was a Shmuel Rechaika and Yoshav Olav Shiva Ushloishim. On his son, he sat Shiva, even though he heard about it very, very many days after the P'tir, more than 30. So now the Gemara has a contradiction about Rebbe Chia and Chia. Rebbe Chia. Eini. V'horav bar achua the Rebbe Chia. Duhu bar achose the Rebbe Chia. So it's very interesting. You find this a lot, that many times when you're about to embark on a new Masechta, the previous Masechta throws in like a bone, like a
teaser.
A teaser, very good. A teaser to the new Masechta. We had it already before. You don't really find sugyas of Yavamas in Tainus or whatever, I think. Over here, you notice it sometimes. All the way at the end of the Masechta, they give you a little bit of a teaser.
No, this is not the next Masechta.
Oh, correct. It's not the next Masechta. Whew. Fine. It's still close enough. It's 38 days from now. Okay, fine. But we already had this sugya the other day. Here goes. Again, when it comes to Yavamas, it's going to be much better. Trust me. Much better. It's going to be digital. We're going on screens. Huh? It's relevant for those who do Daf Yomi. Who doesn't in this room?
The teaser is not a gishmak.
Okay. The whole thing is not gishmak if you don't do Daf Yomi. Fine. What we have here is a very simple case of Rebbe Chia had a brother and a sister, a half brother and a half sister. How's this a half? Because Rebbe Chia's father was once married to another woman and they had a child together called Ivoi. And his half brother and half sister, he also had a sister from another man, that his mother was married to another man, and they had a kid, and that was Rav's mother, and this was Rav's father. It's a very interesting case. That Reb Chia's Reb Chia's brother and sister, half brother and half sister, were Rav's father and mother. Simple case. It's just very, very interesting. The Rav's father and mother were both a brother and sister to Reb Chia.
They weren't related, that's the point.
Obviously, if they were related, he would be a mamzer and he wouldn't be Rav. Rav was the Galadar. They're not related, but it's just very interesting. Dahu barachose sanachamal. Varav, Rav, barachua de Reb Chia. He was the son of the brother Reb Chia. Du barachose de Reb Chia, who's also Rav, was the son of the sister Reb Chia. Kisalik lahasam. When Rav, what? Reb Chia was his uncle, yes. Reb Chia was Rav's uncle. Twice. From two different ways. Kisalik lahasam. When Rav, we know that Rav made it to Eretz Yisrael. Rav was the Galadar in Bavel, but he went to Eretz Yisrael. Kisalik lahasam, Amar lei. So Reb Chia asked him, "Oh, nephew, what's going on? How is my brother doing?" Omar lei abakayam, Ivoi. Is Ivoi alive? I guess he had reason to believe he wasn't alive. It was later on in his life. Rav was already older. Ivoi must have been older. Turning to Amud Beis. Omar lei, what did Rav answer? He didn't say yes. He says, Imo kayemes. What about my mother? Is she alive? So instead of answering a Jewish kind of way of answering, ask him a question. Ask him back a question. Is my mother alive? Omar lei, so Reb Chia says, no, is she alive? It's my sister. Is she alive? Omar lei, abakayam. Is my father alive? So, what happened there? There's a problem. Moitzi diba huksil. If a person gives bad news, tells anybody, anything, so-and-so died, you're ksil. Do not tell people about other people dying. Today, it's, right away with the WhatsApp and this, and in 10 seconds who died, who this, that. This ain't not to. I saw actually, they asked Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, is it okay to put in the newspaper? He said, yeah, whatever. That's the thing, and it's Ma'ir people. But don't be the one. Why should you be the one knocking the door? So excited. It's the most exciting thing. Oh, you heard? So-and-so got killed in a car crash. Let me tell the people. It's a ksil. You're a ksil. So when he asked Rav, he didn't want to tell him. To the point that they say that if you know somebody that died, you don't tell the son. You don't tell the son. Not only do you not tell the son, invite him to a wedding. You mutter. He doesn't know about it. Invite him to your wedding. The Ramshik says, but a son is different. We went through this. I'm just repeating. Shik says that a son, because he says Kaddish, so it's a tremendous Aliyah in the neshama. You're taking away from the neshama. The neshama needs it to get into certain places. Tell the son. But some say, well, okay, but that's one son. It doesn't mean you have to tell every son. Let him find out on his own. I'm assuming people would be very upset if they didn't find out and they didn't go to the Levaya and they didn't say goodbye and they didn't hear the Espedim. But that's not what the Gemara says. They say that Rabbi Yitzchak Ruderman, he was in yeshiva, and his father, I think, was nifter. They didn't tell him. They told him after Shloshim, in order that should be a Shmuel Rechaika, then he just sits a little bit of Shiva, and it's Bittul Torah. Why should he sit 7 days of Bittul Torah? They actually talk about this whole Bittul Torah thing. It's a terrible thing. Bittul Torah, the neshama has a lot more anah that this kid is learning and doing well in yeshiva. And there's stories upon stories like that of them not telling and yet telling, but this is the thing. It's not noig today. This is Rabbi Yitzchak Ruderman. Didn't live so long ago. A story, 80 years ago? Not so long ago. Fine. We just turned to the Amud Beis, sponsored by Moshe Horn and Woody Wyman in schus of Mordy Moskovitz, sponsored in honor of Reb Eli, wishing him tzlach and all his endeavors, both in Gashmius and Ruchnios. What? What did you say? Tell me. Yeah, exactly. Omalei l'shame. Okay, Reb Chia got the hint. This is Reb Chia we're talking about over here. He chapped right away what's going on. He knows the halacha. Don't be ksil. Omalei l'shame tells his gabai chaloitzli min olai v'hoilech acharai kelai lebeis hamerchetz. Let's do two things here. First of all, I'll take off my shoes. So I'm gonna be an oval, but I want to show everybody that this avelus is only for a few minutes. We're going straight to the mikvah. We're going straight to the bathhouse. I'm gonna bathe myself, not like an oval. Let me be an oval for 2 minutes. So he's showing all these halachas in one shot. Says the Gemara. Shema minot las. You learn from what he did here, and he did it on purpose. He didn't need a bath. He didn't need a shower then. He took one 5 minutes ago. He wanted to show, no, I'm going to take off my shoes, and I'm going to take a bath right away. People are going to learn from this. Shema mina ovel also b'ninas sandal. Old halacha, old one but a good one. Ovel cannot wear shoes. Okay, so we see this mefurish. Reb Chia took off his shoes. Ushma mina, it's not stam a minhag. It's not like a gra thing that on Yom Kippur the grunics don't wear shoes and everybody else does wear. No, Ovel doesn't wear shoes. Ushma mina shmur chayka neges ela yom echad. And you see from here this idea that he heard that his brother and sister were nifter, obviously a long, long time ago. You only have to do avelos for 1 moment. Yom echad means 1 moment. Ushma mina mixes hayom kikuloi. It's 1 day / only for a few minutes. I could take a shower right away. So what's the question? You see from here that Reb Chia only observed a few minutes, if that. He took off his shoes, took a shower. And a second ago he said that Rabbi Achia, when his son died, he observed 7 days in Shloshim. What's going on here? Says the Gemara, it's not the same person. Rabbi Chia l'chod, Rabbi Achia l'chod. And that's the end of the story. It's the Beis Yosef, by the way, that says not to tell anybody and all that. It's the Baal Shulchan Aruch says not to tell people. Fine. I want to see somebody stark enough not to say anything. Don't say a word. Don't say. I guess you have to do each case. You have to know who the person is. Some people get really insulted that they didn't tell them and they couldn't be by the parents' levaya. They're going to find out the next day. So what are they, But if a person is like learning well in some yeshiva, chveis, where I don't want to say the name, out of the country somewhere, and he has no connection to anything, there's no phones, nothing, maybe. Shama Shmuel kroiva beregel, Ulamatzaya regel nasis rechoika. So here. This I didn't have patience to write in 25 days, so 1 to 25 is right here on this line. Then you have 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. This is day 30 from the time that the person died or nikvar, whatever. Here's Pesach, from here to here, Pesach. And this guy heard about the Ptira, he heard in the middle of Pesach. Shama Shmuel Kroiva Baregel. Kroiva means it's within 30. So you heard it on day 29, great. But because it's in the middle of Yantiv, he can't take off his shoes, he can't do Kriya, he can't flip his bed, he can't do anything. So he observed 0. No Avelus at all. Yantiv is over right over here. Here's day 31. What does he do? Does he start a whole new Avelus? Or is it considered that he heard it after 30? Or is it considered that he heard it during 30? If he could observe the Avelus, he could take off his shoes for one moment. Okay, so he heard it during 30. But since he can't do anything, so what if he heard it physically on day 29? Maybe it's counted as if he heard it on day 31. And on day 31, it's a different story. Says the Gemara. Shama Shmuel Kroiva Beregel, Umatzoi Regel Nasis Rechoika, Eli Eli Jayme Echad. So it's as if he heard it right over here. It's not as if he heard it during the Shloshim, and if he heard it during Shloshim, he'd have to do 7 days of Shiva. Eli. We count the Regel as if it's a part of the days of the Shmuel Rechoika. Now we have a Shmuel Rechoika. Eli means, it's interesting, Lashon. We don't consider that he heard it on day 29. We consider that he heard it on day 31. Eli. These are all days that he didn't hear it. If he didn't hear it and he only heard it on day 31, what's the halacha? You only do 1 day of Avelus, which means a few minutes. Says the Gemara, does he tear his garments or not? When he hears a Shmuel Rechoika, a person finds out 3 years later his father was nifter. Rip or not rip? What? I skipped? Sorry. Okay, the same halacha. What if it was on Shabbos? On Shabbos he can't do Kriya, he can't do anything. He can't act like a novel. And on Sunday it's already day 31. Same thing. Same halacha as Yantiv. Does he do Kriya? Remani Omar Kriya. Reb Chanina Omar, what does Hill say? What's the halacha? Machlokes. So Reb Chanina Omar Korea. Omar Reb Mani Reb Chanina Bishlam Lidi Damina in Korea. Hanu the Lo Yikavel Shiva. According to me, he didn't have Avelus of 7 days. Why? Because he heard it 3 years later. No Avelus. And Kriya goes together with 7 days of Avelus. They're hand in hand. How does it work? How do you do Kriya without having Shiva? You need Shiva, it seems like, to do Kriya. Says the Gemara, I'll bring you a right that you can do Kriya without Shiva. Either the father of Reb Zera or the brother of Reb Zera, they said in front of Kamed the Reb Zera, one of them, either the brother or the father said in front of Reb Zera. A person borrowed a jacket. He doesn't. He's that poor. He borrowed somebody's jacket, and then he finds out that he has an avelus. So, and he can't do kriya. It's not his to rip. And then he got a jacket his own. So it depends. B'soich shiva korea. If it's within shiva, he rips, he tears. Lachar shiva any korea. Oni Reb Zera basrei b'medva mamurim, and Reb Zera says, let me explain to you. That's only b'chamisha meisi mitzvah. On the other 5, avelim fine, but a father and mother, you rip even afterwards, even though there was no shiva at all. So you see, I have a case that you tear, you do kriya when there's no shiva. Says the Gemara, Kitanya
You had the chiyuv, you just didn't have the jacket.
I know, it bothered me. No, you're saying that there was shiva.
Yeah.
There was shiva. Yeah, I know. You see that like that. I know. It bothered me for a while. Fine. Says the Gemara, but what happened was, Kitanya hi l'chvoid avivimai. The reason why he did kriya is not because of the chiyuv of kriya, but it's just to honor them. In other words, like this. Kriya always depends on shiva. If there's no shiva, there's no kriya. So memela, if there's a shmur rechaika, if you hear that somebody died, one of the kroivim died, and you don't sit shiva, you don't do kriya. The exception to the rule is a father or mother, you do kriya, but not because of the halach of kriya, but because to show respect to father and mother. So here's the pasuk. It's a very important pasuk here. In pasuk Aleph it says, "Varmat aleim." It's just in the middle of the pasuk. Lenefesh lo yitam b'ama. If a kohen has an isser to touch a body, a corpse, becomes tamei. But then the pasuk says, but he has a mitzvah to take care of his family and his kroivim. Ki'im l'she'eroi. Oh, it's yellow. You show me it's yellow. Okay, the yellow didn't work over here. Tried it. It didn't look so good on the screen either. But yesterday it did work. Oh, that's because the whole box was yellow. And I got it. Okay. If it's stationary. Ki'im l'she'eroi akar velov. The Gemara is going to say that means what? She'eroi is a wife. Limai is number 2. La'aviv, number 3. Livnai, number 4. Libitai, in yellow that you don't see, number 5. La'achiv, number 6. And then we have Pasuk Gimel, that wasn't with a man. Fine. So those 7. Veiluei, Avim Esav. This is the same, what the Torah says that a kohen should take care of, but those are the ones that we sit shiva for and the whole thing. Veiluei, Ishtoi aviv imoi v'imoi achiv achoisei b'noi bidoi hoisifu aleim midrabanan. They added to the list achiv achoisei hapsula meimoi, a brother or a sister from his mother's side. Because midaraisa it says from the father. V'achoisei nesua, and a married sister, they added beime aviv beime imoi. But a married sister, Aboisai, is only midrabanan, not midaraisa. Ukeshem shemisabel aleim kach misabel al shniim shelahem divrei Rebbe Akiva. Shniim means one generation away. So all the avelim that we have, let's say a son, so son's son. So that would mean a grandson. Let's say the avelis is on a father, the father's father. So you're misabel on a grandfather. Let's say a sister's son. So you take it down one generation, that's shniim. Not nephews. Yeah, that's a nephew. That is a nephew. Yeah, nephews. Misabel al shniim shalem on a nephew. Divrei Rebbe Akiva. Rebbe Shimon ben Elazar Omer eni misabel elo al ben benoi v'al avi aviv. No, it has to be direct descendants, upwards, downwards. That's it. So, well, we're going to see in a second. Chacham say, if your relative does avelos, then you have to do avelos with them. Says Gemara, that's exactly what Rebbe Akiva says. If your sister is ba'avelos, why? Because her son died, the nephew died, so it's the same exact thing, no? Says the Gemara, Rebbe Akiva says that there's a real din avelos. Chacham say it's make-believe. Chacham say, if you're in front of your sister and she's sitting shiva on her son, so you have to pretend that you're ba'avelos on your nephew. But you don't really sit shiva, you don't really do avelos on a nephew. Rebbe Akiva says, no. It's for real. He's your nephew. Sit shiva. So, it happens to be that we know, today we don't do avelos like that. We're not misabel on kroivim. Although, the halacha is like chachamim. The halacha is like chacham that you should be misabel on kroivim. So why don't we do it? Because they have the right to be mevater. Because it's make believe. It's not like Rebbe Akiva that it's a serious avelos. We're trying to do kavod for the sister. Sisters are moichel. They're not going to schlep their brothers and the whole family into the avelos thing. You have to act ba'avelos in front of your wife, but not in front of her. You see this idea that in front of her, whether it's in the house or whatever it means, you have to act ba'avelos. The shver is nifter. A person has to act ba'avelos in front of his wife. What?
Even on grandchildren,
Yeah, hers.
They take it Lakula also on Lakula.
Not Likula. Why Likula?
Even more Lakula than Shim ben Elazar. So now grandson, they're going to say, is also a fake Avelis. Shim ben Elazar.
How's that a Kula?
It's not a real Avelis at all.
You said, Likula to Rebbe Kiva.
And even more than Shim ben Elazar.
Okay, fine. Maruk v'shachiv lei bar chamua. It's an interesting way of saying that his brother-in-law died. This the son of the father-in-law died. Savar lemesav alei shiva shloishim. He wanted to do a full shiva. All ravun l'gabei ashkechei amalei. So the yaseh bas lemechal. Unbelievable lashon. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to get a free meal? You're trying to eat the food in the shiva house. Layom l'chvaydishtoi ella chamev v'chamoisai. Only on a father-in-law and a mother-in-law. So it's very interesting. They bring this line as chamev v'chamoisai. There's such a thing as a person should act avelos on a father-in-law and mother-in-law, but not on a son-in-law, not on a daughter-in-law. The sanya mishameis chamev v'chamoisai in rishon lochav v'zishtoi liyos kucheles v'lis b'keses. If a father-in-law is nifter, he can't tell his wife to put on makeup. Ella koifa mitasai. Remember these words. He has to flip over his bed. A man whose father-in-law died, he flips over his bed, he acts by avelos. V'noyegima avelos. Hers. Her avelos, but he acts with her. He treats it, he's koif emitasi, he has to flip his own bed to act with her.
That's right.
No. His father-in-law died, he flips his bed, he acts by, she of course is bavelos. But even him, that is, he's not so related to him, it's his wife's father, he acts by avelos. And the same thing, if her father-in-law dies, or her mother-in-law, she should not put on makeup. She flips over her bed. Now we have a stira. If his father-in-law died, they said she could mix the wine and then add the water to it. Make your bed, do the daf. It's that simple. She makes the bed for her husband. But what does it say? She makes the bed for her husband. What position is the husband's bed? Upside down or right side up? How do you make a bed if it's upside down? A second ago we said, kaifa mita, flips it over. It says she makes her bed. Very interesting. In those days, it was the Gemara always tells us it's a sign of chiba, affection. She washes his face, the hands, feet. Kashin adadi. There's a difference between a father-in-law and a mother-in-law that he acts by velos, and other krovim that he doesn't act by velos, she makes his bed. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful Chodesh.